By the way, this presentation is being recorded, so if that is an issue for you, you do not have to appear on camera. We love it when you do, but you don't have to. Any questions that you might have as we go ahead and either put them in the chat, or if you're feeling really brave, you can come on the mic. I appreciate everybody coming in with their mics muted. Good stuff. All right, well, 2 out of my 3 clocks say 7. So I'm going to leave this join code up for about 30 more seconds, give or take 30 seconds, and we will get started because we still have a few people joining us. Glad y'all are here for our final session. Oh my goodness, the test is coming soon. May the 4th be with you. I had to say it. Been saying it all day. All right. Looks like we have just a couple more people joining us today. Make sure you go to joinpd.com, enter the code NSSTAL. Looks like Mr. Gillespie has put that in the chat for us. Awesome. Well, like I said, I respect your time. And so we are going to go ahead and get going. If you are just joining us, please make sure you go to joinpd.com and enter the code. So make sure that when you come in, your mic is ready to get started, and go ahead and answer our question. Have you covered foreign exchange yet? So starting to see those responses roll on in. Ooh, I'm happy to report there are a lot of yeses. There's even a yuppers. Feeling that vibe. Feeling it. Yes. Awesome.
The slide does say monetary policy. We got to change that.
What's that?
The slide does say, has your class covered monetary policy?
Oh my goodness.
We got a yes, we have covered monetary policy.
Well, I'm glad you have covered monetary policy at this point. Go ahead and answer it as if it said foreign exchange. We're going to play a game and pretend. Does it say foreign exchange? It does in our imaginations. So have you covered foreign exchange? Ooh, okay, so we're seeing a few people that haven't covered it. Okay, now that we've added that addendum of, by the way, this is foreign exchange. All right. Oh, someone has said, and foreign exchange, parentheses. Dig it. Thank you. All right.
We also got a yes.
All right. Well, if you have covered it, great. You're in good hands. If you haven't covered it, we are going to go a little bit fast tonight. Do your best with it and use this as a tool to see where you may need to get a little bit of extra info, or you may need to pay a little bit of extra closer attention in class. Once again, if you are just joining us, go ahead and go to joinpd.com, enter the code NSSTAL. And if you are a teacher here, please make sure that you shoot us a line and say, hey, I'm a teacher. Put me in the teacher thing so I get my teacher credit. All right. Well, I'm going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Adrienne Weller. I teach with A+ College Ready, but I also teach at the great Tanner High School in Tanner, Alabama. And we also have Mr. Gillespie joining us from the awesome Sparkman High School. And shout out to those kids here from Sparkman tonight, making your teacher proud. Doesn't he look proud? He does.
Yes, he is proud.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started. So exchange rates. Exchange rates are simply the price at which one currency is exchanged for another. Ooh, my screen is not updating. Wonder why that is. Give me 2 seconds, kids. All right, we got to the bell ringer. There we go. Let's flip that display real quick. There we go.
There it is.
All right, for some reason it's working that way. So we may just have to do it that way. It's okay. All right. So your exchange rate, it's a market. And as we know, price in markets, or price and quantity, are the staples of a market. So an exchange rate, let's say you're going to another country, for example, France, because there's a really great concert going on in France. Now, if I go to that concert in France and I have my American dollars there, am I going to be able to buy myself any croissants? Am I going to be able to buy anything at the concert? No. I would have to exchange my money for euros. So anytime you want to purchase something in a different country, you have to exchange your money to buy in that country's currency. So it's all going to come down to supply and demand again. So it's like we're flashing all the way back to our very first, what's going on here? It's like we're flashing back to unit 1. All right. So exchange rates, because they are a market, price is going to function like any other price. For example, if I go to my local coffee shop, I would get 1 coffee for $2, which means that for $1, I would get half of the coffee if such thing existed. Exchange rates, same exact way. So if I go to, or if someone from Europe comes to the United States and exchanges a euro, they're going to get $1.19 US dollars. That is the value or the price for 1 euro. Inversely, if I take my 1 US dollar and I go over to Europe, that will only buy me 0.84 of a euro. Remember, we're going to divide each side by the price we know to get our other price. So I know 1 euro equals $1.19 US dollars. I'm going to go 1 divided by $1.19. That's going to give me 0.84. So that's how we can determine the alternative exchange rate. So within these exchange rates, we have different values assigned based upon a comparison between one currency and the other currency. Keep in mind, it's always going to be expressed comparatively or relatively. And I want to make a big emphasis on those terms, comparative and relative, because when you're talking about exchange rates, you have to have both sides of your equation. And showing that, use those 2 terms, comparative or relative. Students of mine have used synonyms for that in the past, and they lose points, even though it means the same thing. AP, when they are scoring your tests in Cincinnati, are looking for comparative or relative when you're talking about one rate compared to another. So we're going to hold pretty consistent with those terms. So appreciation, when a currency is going to become more valuable in terms of other currencies or compared to other currencies, that currency appreciates. So if I go over to France to my amazing concert and I take my $1 and get 0.84 euros, and then 2 weeks later, I go over to France and I give them my dollar and I get 1.05 euro, my dollar has appreciated because I get more euros than I did before. Likewise, when a currency becomes less valuable or has less purchasing power in relation to other currencies, that currency is going to depreciate. All right. So going back to Europe again, here we go. Take my $1, I get my 0.84 euro. Life is cool. But then 2 weeks later, I go back and I give them my $1 and they only give me 0.75 of a euro. Suddenly, I'm not getting as many euros for that $1. My life gets slightly sadder because my dollar buys fewer euros. It has less purchasing power, which means that Weller can't buy as many croissants, and that makes my life sad. So keep in mind, with this idea, you may be asked to determine exchange rates. So let's look at a problem. So imagine that you go on vacation to Thailand and you purchase this amazing looking pineapple fried rice. This fried rice is 65 Thai baht. All right. So let's figure out how much in US dollars this would be worth. Well, I know my exchange rate is $1 per 30 Thai baht. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 30 Thai baht and I'm going to divide my 65 here by 30. Okay, 65 divided by 30 is going to give me a grand total of, what's it going to be? See, the numbers are rolling in. Keep in mind, y'all, that when you do this, you get to use a very simple calculator on the exam. So it's those basic 4-function calculators. All right, still see a few dots moving around. Gave you a pretty big hint there. All right, looks like we are centering up around that awesome answer. Good stuff. Remember, even when we reveal the answers, you can still change your answers for your takeaways so that you know what the correct answer would be, even though it's going to be on your takeaways. All right. So if I look at this, correct answer is going to be $2.16. All right. So it looks like a lot of y'all were right on that. Good stuff. I see a few dots moving back to be like, oh, let's get back there. So remember, when you know one exchange rate and you're given the price in that currency, you're able to just divide each side by the number you know. All right, let's keep moving because there's so many wonderful things to talk to y'all about today. All right, so when you are graphing your foreign exchange market, and it is a market graph, keep in mind, it's going to tell you what market it is. And right here, I know this is the market for dollars. There's a few little hints that I have. First one is right down here, quantity of US dollars. All right. Then if you notice right here, my supply is labeled supply of US dollars. Demand is demand for US dollars. And over here, my exchange rate is listed as euros per US dollar, or you might see it as euros over dollars. All right. Now, when my students first started drawing these graphs, we had quite a catastrophe happen. And catastrophe is, of course, exaggerated. My students would oftentimes get this confused. They would put the euros down here. They would put the dollars over here. Some kids just put the dollar bill label. I've seen a lot of different responses to this. And what I'm going to tell you is if you want to get these easy draw the graph points that you can get on your AP exam, first thing to do is figure out which market it is. They'll usually tell you the market for yen, the market for euros, the market for dollars. Tell my students, underline that market, then immediately label your X with that. Okay, so once your X axis is labeled, you can use two of these different little tricks. First is going to be the bottoms have to match. So this is the bottom of the entire graph right here. This is the bottom of my exchange rate. Or one of my students pointed out, hey, we can just use that other goes over thing. So if it is the market that's being compared, for example, the euro, other, which is my euro, goes over. Use what makes sense in your brain. But please, 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 when you are doing this exam, check your labels. Keep in mind too, we always want to put that quantity equilibrium label as well. And our price equilibrium is, of course, going to be listed as our exchange rate, which can just be little e, little r. All right, who feels ready to give this a shot? Beautiful, no objections. I love that journey for us. So go ahead, and I would love to see you draw the market for yen compared to the euro. So it's the market for yen compared to the euro. Mr. Gillespie and I are going to leave you all some feedback. We're going to try to get to as many of you as we can. If we don't get you this time, we'll try to get you another time.
Right. Thanks so much. Holding
All right, I'm starting to see. Ooh, I'm starting to see some real pretty graphs on here. Excellent. All right. Keep on drawing. I know it sometimes takes a little bit of time to draw on these things. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and start showing some responses. So this response right here is beautiful. As you can see, you've got your euro on top, yen on the bottom. And then you also scroll that just a little bit. There we go. You also have demand of yen, quantity of yen. All of these are labeled brilliantly. Very, very nice. Great job. Go ahead if you want to change yours, go for it. I'm going to put up our example. Here we go. So again, just to spot check yourself, this is the market for yen compared to the euro. So it's that market for yen. So that automatically means I'm going to put quantity of yen. I'm going to put euros over yen. And then just to be 100% sure that my reader understands that I know this is the market for yen, I put supply of yen, demand of yen. And as always, we've got to mark those equilibrium points because we want to know the exchange rate, which is our market clearing price.
When I was scrolling through those answers, there were a lot of graphs that were drawn correctly, but for the euro, not for the yen. So we had a lot of people that put euro or quantity of euro on the horizontal axis and then put yen or over euro on the vertical axis. So we got to make sure we're reading those questions correctly.
Absolutely. And that's where underlining what it is the market for, I think that's a great fail-safe. Great point, Mr. Gillespie. All right, so moving on, you will have a chance to draw a few more graphs here in just a bit. All right, so a key to understanding foreign exchange is to understand who is demanding and who is supplying what currency. Now, going back to Europe again, all right? Or I'm sorry, we're going to America this time. We're all going to be European. This is very exciting. So Europeans want to purchase American goods, services, whatever it is. If they want to purchase something from America, they're going to have to pay in American dollars. Think about this. If you go to the store up the street and you try to give them a foreign currency, they're going to look at you like you are slightly strange and probably not make that purchase with you. So what we have to do when people want to buy goods, services, and assets in different countries, they have to pay in that country's currency. So when Europeans come over and they want to buy American goods, or heck, they order off the internet, they're going to supply euros and in exchange demand dollars. Vice versa, Americans who want to buy European goods, services, or assets, they're going to have to supply their dollars to purchase those euros back. Okay, so if I were to go to an airport and get on a plane, and let's go to Germany this time. I get off the airplane and I will go to a kiosk there and I will hand them my American dollars, AKA supply my American dollars, and then get back euros. So because this is in fact a market, there are going to be shifters. And this is going to affect the demand for one currency and inversely the supply for the other. So dollar versus euro. If demand increases for the dollar, people want to buy more American goods. Supply is then going to increase for the euro at the exact same time, because go back to that kiosk in the airport. People are supplying their euros to get those dollars in return. So European supply in order to get, AKA demand, dollars. So quick tip for some of these multiple choice questions you might see. you might see a situation happen and it says increases demand for dollars and euros at the same time. We know in our brains that that can't be the case, because in the foreign exchange market, you're literally exchanging them. So demand and supply are going, or demand for one currency is going to increase the supply of the other currency. So just like any market economy, we have things that will shift demand and shift supply in this economy. First one is going to be change in taste. So let's say back in my day, Pokemon cards were huge. People loved Pokemon cards. So if you wanted to, let's say, buy Pokemon cards straight from Japan, you couldn't just send American dollars over there. No, that would increase the demand for yen, because Pokemon cards from Japan would be paid for in yen. And in exchange for that, that's going to also increase the supply of US dollars as buyers supply their dollars to get yen. So let's see how well we understand that. Got a multiple choice question here for you. If a French firm buys computers from the United States, there would be an increase in which of the following in the United States? Would it be A, the demand for United States dollars and the supply of euros? B, demand for both United States dollars and euros? C, supply of United States dollars and demand for euros? D, supply of both United States dollars and euros? Or E, international value of the euro relative to the United States dollar? All right, looking at those answers rolling in. Participation in this group is going quite well. All right, looks like people are settling in. Ooh, someone second guessed themselves. Don't second guess yourself. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right. So, as always, feel free to change your answer. Let's go through these and figure out which one we like the best. All right. So, two that I'm going to get rid of right away is B, demand for both US dollars and euros. Because again, if I am going to be buying computers from the United States, what would I pay for that in? That's right, dollars. Talking to y'all like they're going to respond. So I would buy those in dollars. There we go. All right. So that tells me right there that demand for both US dollars and euros can't increase, because what am I paying for my dollars with? No one's giving them to me for free. That's not cool. Likewise, supply of both the United States dollars and euros is also not going to work. That's not going to be our answer either, simply because the supply of both can't increase. That means I'm getting nothing in return. I'm just giving them money. And they don't pay us like that as teachers. So now I'm left with three different choices. First, French firm is going to be paying in euros. And since they're buying from the United States, they need to pay in dollars. So what that tells me is that they are going to supply their euros and demand what? Seeing some answers change? Dollars. So they supply the euros and demand the dollars. So what we will see is answer A, demand for the United States dollar and the supply of euros will both increase. Feel free to change your answer if you'd like, but we do have to get moving here in about 3, 2, 1. All right. So our next shifter, that drawing should be cleared here in just a moment, y'all. Maybe, who knows? We may be stuck with that. All right. So next one is going to be change in relative incomes. So imagine that everybody in Europe gets a raise just for existing on the continent of Europe and participating in the European Union. That's awesome. So what that means is that overall Europeans are going to be buying more. So they're going to be buying more domestic goods, but they're also going to be buying more imported goods. And as we know, what happens when you buy imported goods? Well, when you buy imported goods, you have to pay for it in that country's currency. So what we would see is a demand increase for US dollars as they're buying more US goods. And then we would see the supply of euros increase. I have no idea why my drawing is still staying on there. I apologize. All right. Our third shifter is going to be change in relative price level, AKA inflation or deflation. So let's say the price level in the US decreases relative to Europe. Assuming ceteris paribus, everything else is the same. Consumers tend to go to the lower price. So if the price level in the US decreases, that means that overall, most US goods are going to be cheaper compared to European goods. So what would this do? Well, let's walk through it. What it means is that as the price level decreases in the US, those relative prices are relatively cheaper. Again, got to stay relative here. All right. So American goods are relatively cheaper compared to those in Europe. That relative price level is going to cause consumers to prefer goods and services from the United States. And as we know by now, they will need to use US dollars to buy US goods. Demand for the dollar will increase, and supply of the euro then will increase. So this will cause the dollar to appreciate and the euro will depreciate. All right. So let's do our fourth and final shifter, which is.
Sorry, can we go back to that last one real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Right here?
Yeah, the relative income, or the relative price level. Because this one's actually, it's also a double shifter. Like this could also shift the supply of US dollars, right? Since our stuff is now relatively cheaper than in Europe, Americans will supply less dollars to the foreign exchange market because we're not going to buy as many European goods now either. We're going to buy more of our own country's goods. So we'll actually also supply less US dollars. It'll still appreciate the dollar, like both shifts lead to an appreciation, but they could ask about the supply of US dollars in this situation as well, and it would decrease the supply of US dollars. So anytime you have a relative price level, it can actually shift demand or supply on the same graph, but it will lead to the same either appreciation or depreciation.
Awesome point. Thank you. So, Mr. Gillespie, awesome. That is exactly right. So the cool thing to remember is it gets you the same result. So whichever way you think about it is going to benefit you. Again, sometimes if they're not specific, it comes down to what makes sense in your brain. And Mr. Gillespie just demonstrated that he thinks of it in the terms of supply depreciation or supply shifting left, and I was thinking demand shifting right. So awesome. All right, our last shifter is change in relative interest rates. And so this right here, we're thinking of when you are wanting to get the most bang for your buck as someone who is trying to earn interest, you're going to follow the higher interest rates. So for example, the interest rate in the United States increases relative to Europe. Those European investors, rather than stay domestic, are going to go chase that higher interest rate, and they're going to start wanting to put their money into US options. And so what we see with that is they can't put euros in there necessarily. So they're going to have to demand US dollars. So again, demand for US dollars increases, causing the supply of euros to increase. And we see then, of course, the dollar appreciates and supply of euro, or I'm sorry, we see the dollar appreciate and the euro depreciate. All right.
Two things about that one. Sorry, I'm a little slow jumping in there. Two things about that one.
You're great.
This gets a little bit confusing when you talk about capital inflow, because for the whole entire rest of the class, every time we talk about capital, it's factories, tools, machines. You know, capital is that's what we talk about as capital. But when we're talking about foreign exchange and capital inflow, that's cash, right? It's not tools and factories and machines. It's just actual cash. And this shifter, change in relative interest rates, that's another double shifter where inside the same country, it can shift either demand or supply. And it'll lead to the same either appreciation or depreciation in both scenarios. I was busy typing. I didn't quite hear which line we went over for this one. Did we talk about it shifting demand or the supply?
I chose demand. That's where my brain goes usually.
And it would increase demand for US dollars, but it would also decrease the supply of US dollars, because if I have cash in the United States and the real interest rate has increased, I'm going to keep more of my cash domestically rather than sending it internationally. So the supply of US dollars will also decrease and shift to the left. But again, it would still lead to appreciation. So whichever way you think of it, it'll give you the right answer. It's just you might need to know both in case they ask you, in an FRQ, what happens to the supply of US dollars.
Awesome. Awesome. Good explanation. Thank you so much. All right. So let's go ahead and let's test what you know. So please, if you're looking at both my screen and the Pear Deck, ignore me crossing out option B. That line's, I think, going to be with us for the remainder. So we might as well just embrace it at this point. So go ahead and let's see what you've got. Which of the following is most likely to cause an increase in the international value of the dollar? So which of these would cause the dollar to increase in value? All right, so answers are rolling on in. And it looks like, oh, got a few people changing. I apologize if you hear any groaning behind me. That would be my dog. She's getting comfortable. All right, here we go. Looks like people are sticking to their answer. Nobody fell for A, lower United States government expenditures. Good job. So let's look at B, higher real estate or higher real interest rates abroad. Okay, so if people can earn higher interest rates in another country versus the United States, they're not going to demand United States dollars. Inversely, we're also going to see the supply of US dollars increase as people choose not to spend their money here. So those higher real interest rates abroad, remember, they're going to chase the higher interest rates, and thus the demand for that country's currency is going to increase. Okay, so B is not correct. C, expansionary monetary policy in the United States. Well, a lot of you all, when you answered the question, noted that you had finished monetary policy, which is awesome. So we know that if they are expanding the monetary policy, that is actually going to drive interest rates down. And so if we're looking again from that idea of interest sensitive spending, if the nominal interest rate has decreased, the demand for dollars is not going to be there, because again, you want more bang for your buck, you're going to go chase the higher interest rate. And then reduced inflation abroad. Okay, so that overall price level decreases, and we're seeing those other goods sold for a cheaper amount. So reduced inflation abroad would cause people to want to go and buy those cheaper goods. Therefore, the dollar, again, would not increase in value. The one that would, however, is higher United States real interest rates. And if you think about it this way too, B and D are kind of opposite of each other. So when my brain sees that, it makes me want to examine those two just a little bit closer. But those higher real interest rates, people are chasing that higher yield. So they're going to want to buy US dollars so that they can put those dollars into our economy. So go ahead. The correct answer is, in fact, D. Seeing lots of awesome answers. Feel free to change your answer if you would like to. All right, and we are going to go ahead and move on here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So the effects of exchange rates, when a currency appreciates, anything that is bought from that country is now going to be, once again, there's that word relatively, more expensive, because it brings that back that it's a comparison. All right. So these relatively more expensive goods are going to, or this is going to happen after that initial shift occurs. So as one of my students said, that's the second or third turn on the merry-go-round. All right. It's the effect of whatever just shifted. So you will need to know these effects of what happens when currency either appreciates or depreciates. So when currency appreciates, exports are going to decrease because, well, now those prices are relatively more expensive. People tend to chase the lower price, ceteris paribus. Likewise, domestically, imports would then increase because, again, when we look at that, compare our currency compared to another, those import price or those foreign goods are actually cheaper relatively. So now we're chasing that cheaper price. This is also known as the wish.com effect. For those of you that remember wish.com. And then finally, the current account will decrease. However, the financial account increases. Aggregate demand decreases, which means output decreases, unemployment increases, and the price level decreases. We're pointing this out to you because a lot of times you're going to be asked about something happening in a foreign market. But keep in mind, almost everything comes back to, and now what happened to the domestic economy? So be ready to walk through all of those different steps as to why, when something happens with your domestic current appreciating, it actually drives aggregate demand to decrease. Make sure you're able to connect those dots. All right. Are we ready for a multiple choice on this one? I hope so. Here you go. And again, please disregard the strange blue line if you are on the Zoom. It is not a hint to you. It is simply a failure of my computer. So your multiple choice. An increase in the international value of the United States dollar will tend to cause. So think back to what we just talked about. Seeing a lot of smart answers on here already. Excellent, excellent. All right, please keep in mind that your participation does show on your takeaway. We're starting to see a slight lag in participation. So I'm going to encourage everybody to just, we got less than 15 minutes left. You can do this. All right, it looks like our numbers have stopped shifting. Everybody has reached their happy place. So let's go ahead and go through this. We do have a few free response questions that I want to give you time to do. So we're going to start with my handy dandy line here. The national income of the United States increases. Remember, this isn't going to affect the national income positively. Instead, what we're going to see is we are going to see this actually become a slightly negative effect if we're thinking just in this term. All right, employment in the manufacturing sector will increase. Afraid not. The inflation rate in the United States to increase. No. The growth rate of the United States economy to increase. So if we look at B, C, D, and E, well, B, C, and E, these all tend to point to a rightward shift in aggregate demand, possibly. But if we remember, when the dollar appreciates, or when the dollar increases in value, that makes our prices look relatively more expensive. So our exports will, in fact, fall because compared to other countries, again, relatively, our goods are now more expensive. So people will not necessarily be buying United States goods. Any questions on that? Correct answer is A.
I know in my class, I don't really use the vocabulary national income all that much. So a lot of times students get confused about what it means by national income, but that's pretty much just your output of real GDP. So like that would represent your national income because there's the expenditures approach and then there's the income approach. So those are the same thing. So don't get tripped up by just the language and the wording of the question. When it says national income, it means output of real GDP.
Awesome. Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Gillespie. Good call. All right. So we talked about what happens when a currency appreciates. Spoiler alert, when a currency depreciates, It's the exact opposite effect. So again, when a currency depreciates, anything bought from that country is now relatively cheaper. So that's going to cause exports to increase, imports to decrease, and then the current account, of course, is going to increase, but the financial account will decrease. Aggregate demand increases, which means that rightward shift of the aggregate demand curve, we see an increase in real GDP, aka output, unemployment decreases, and the price level increases. So again, if you can memorize one side of this, then you will understand, then as long as you understand that the other side is the opposite, you are good to go. So let's go ahead and we're going to tackle one of the questions that my students, they don't like these kind of questions. However, we're here, we're practicing. I have full faith that we are going to rock this question. Are you ready? Let's go. There we go. And again, the blue line is of no consequence. So if the nation's currency depreciates relative to that of its trading partners, what will happen to the nation's exports, imports, and aggregate demand? So we've got three things we need to consider here: exports, imports, and aggregate demand. Oh, those responses are flying in. Good stuff. All right, seeing those numbers still shifting around. It's like I can feel you thinking right now, and it feels good. All right, still seeing a little bit of shifting. I do want you to have a chance to tackle some of these free response questions. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk through this. So the first time my students saw this type of question, they freaked out. They were like, it's too much. Oh my goodness. So a great strategy to approach these type of questions is first, go with what you're most comfortable with. So if a nation's currency depreciates, what that tells me is that those prices are now relatively cheaper than its trading partners. So I'm thinking, I love a good deal. You love a good deal. So automatically that tells me that those exports are going to increase. And if I can remember just that part of it, I've gotten rid of 3 wrong answers in C, D, and E. Right there, I've narrowed it down to a 50-50 choice, which the odds are way more in my favor. If I remember too, then that exports and imports are going to be opposite, that one can't increase while the other decreases. Oh my goodness, I've narrowed it down to the correct answer. And if I can't remember that, what I can remember is exports in that GDP formula count positively, imports count negatively. Therefore, I know that an increase in exports is going to most likely increase aggregate demand. Again, working ceteris paribus here. So if I can remember one of the 3, I've got it down to 50-50, or worst case scenario, I've got a third of a chance. If I can remember 2 out of the 3, I'm looking real strong. So the correct answer is when a nation's currency depreciates, that its exports are going to be increase, imports decrease, and then that will cause aggregate demand to shift to the right, increasing. So go ahead, and if you want to change your answers, go for it. But we're going to move here in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so we've got a free response question here. The United States and South Korea are trading partners, and the United States has a 0 current account balance. Assume now that the inflation rate in the United States decreases relative to the inflation rate in South Korea. Based upon the decrease in the inflation rate in the United States, will the United States exports to South Korea increase or decrease? Okay.
You can't just be playing my intro song.
I mean,
Kinda
Cade, you don't
jealous.
have to tell everybody, but at some point you can tell me what your intro song actually is.
I'm just jealous you have an intro song. Dang. Tanner students, step it up. I want an intro song. All right. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So we're just leaving a little bit of feedback here. All right. So it looks like answers are getting locked in. So correct answer is that exports to the United States, exports to South Korea will in fact increase. And I saw a lot of increase. Keep in mind, when you are asked one of these types of questions, if it just says increase or decrease, you can answer that the United States exports to South Korea will increase, period. You do not have to explain. And I caution my students about over explaining, because I did see a couple of people in here that had the right answer, but they explained it incorrectly. So keep in mind, you can't explain yourself out of a correct answer. We as readers want to give you that point, but we can't if you say something that is wrong. So if you put exports to South Korea will increase, United States exports will increase, good on you. All right.
And in all honesty, for that question, like you can also just put increase.
Mhm.
Like the way that question is phrased, and it says, does it do this or this? You can just write either this or this. So if it increases or decreases, you can either just write increase, or if the answer is decrease, you can write that. Like, she's right. As a grader, we want to be able to check it and move quick.
All right. By my clock, it is now 59. So as much as I would like to give you one more free response question, again, out of respect for your time, we have till 8:15, don't we? Hey, all right. So let's do another free response question. Oh my word. I already have somebody putting in like a million question marks. Okay, they deleted it. All right. So based upon the change in United States exports in Part A, so that's where we just came from. Remember, those exports to South Korea increased. Answer each of the following. Will the United States current account balance remain at zero, be in surplus, or be in deficit? So again, a one-word answer could work here. If you feel like trying to explain it, do it, but be right. No pressure, right? All right, so we're going through and just giving a little bit of feedback here. We're taking just another moment to make sure that we give a little bit more feedback. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look. Couple of correct answers here. So the US account balance will be in surplus. And both of these totally correct answers. You do not have to explain unless it asks you to explain. But keep in mind, US exports are increasing. So this is going to increase the US current account balance because those exports, remember, we're sending goods, so money is coming in, adding to that current account balance. So we will be in surplus. Now, keep in mind with this, if on the previous response, you had said that exports would decrease, you need to maintain continuity. So I'm hoping some of my people who did put that the account would be in deficit, we're trying to maintain continuity. Because if you put decrease, or sorry, if you put that they would decrease in one, then you're going by your answer in A. And your hint on that for the reading is going to be when it says, according to your answer in part, whatever it is. Keep in mind, you can have a wrong answer in part A, but as long as your train of logic stays continuous, you could get your point for this one. Any questions on that? Because that confuses some people sometimes. Okay, cool. Mr. Gillespie, did you have anything you wanted to add on that? You've been making some really good contributions.
Well, this time my answer is going to be no, I do not have anything to add.
Fair enough, fair enough. All right, so let's move on to another free response. another part of the free response, I should say. All right. So right here again, you see that, or okay, seeing, there we go. Now I'm on the right one. So based upon the change in United States exports in Part A, answer each of the following. All right, so this is another part. Again, based upon the response in Part A, we're all going to pretend like we put the correct response in Part A, that our exports would increase to South Korea. So what will happen to real gross domestic product in the United States in the short run? Now you got to explain it to me. So remember, walk me through all of the steps. All right, starting to see answers roll in. Jackson with all of the punctuation. I love it. Love it.
Jackson, what's the matter with your keyboard?
All right, looks like responses are being stuck to. Gonna give just a couple more moments. Oh, yep, seeing a few changes happen here and there. Go ahead and keep giving us those responses. Y'all are doing fantastic for being 8 o'clock at night. Good job. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and show a couple of responses here. All right. So first one, real GDP will increase since net exports increase, aggregate demand will shift right. This shift will cause real GDP to increase. Good stuff. And then in the short run, aggregate demand will increase due to the increase in net exports that would cause real GDP of the United States to increase. All right, good stuff. So a couple of different ways to explain that. Both are correct. So again, make sure that you are tying those net exports to being, talking is hard. Make sure you're tying that to being a component of GDP, and it is in fact a positive component leading to real GDP to increase.
It's that
Good.
connection between net exports to aggregate demand to real GDP. A lot of students
Yes.
just went straight from net exports to real GDP, missed that step in the middle and did not get the point.
Exactly. All right. Let's do one more. All right. The South Korean currency is the won. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the foreign exchange market for the United States dollar. Big hint there. Big hint. Show the effect of the lower inflation rate in the United States on the won price per United States dollar. Right. So we have what our market is. And then we have something that is going to change that market. I know these are hard to graph on, but I'm going to trust y'all to do the best job you can. We have some really talented graphers on here. Seeing some good labeling going on. Good stuff. Good participation, y'all.
Also, if anybody's curious, the intro walk-up song for Cade is Electric Feel by MGMT. So there you go.
I'm going to write that down so I can listen to it later.
It's
Thank
actually
you,
a pretty good
Cade.
song. Yeah, it's a pretty good song.
Keep in mind that all of your labels need to match. Supply should match demand. All right, we do not have much time left, so I'm going to go ahead and just show you one of these responses that is beautiful. All right, so let me see if I can make this work. Here we go. All right, so, well, that didn't work at all. There it is. So real quick, showing you this graph right here. It is in fact the market for dollars. So I see quantity of dollar, demand for dollar, supply of dollar. All right, I've got my quantity and my exchange rate. The only thing I am missing is my shift, but this graph is beautifully set up. So I assume that I just stopped this person before they were able to show the shift. Correct shift on this is going to be the dollar, of course, is going, the demand for dollars is, of course, going to shift to the right as real GDP in the US will increase because of that increase in exports. So that increase in exports, we are going to see, again, American goods being shipped overseas. So what that means is that they have to buy them in US dollars. So let me just flip back to your free response and let you manipulate this if you would like. So if you want to go ahead and correct yours to show that rightward shift of demand, because again, if we're exporting, let's say it correctly tonight. All right, if you are exporting US goods, they have to be paid for in US dollars. Therefore, the demand for the dollar will in fact increase. All right.
If anybody happened to draw a decrease in the supply of dollar, you would also be correct.
Absolutely. Mr. Gillespie with the supply side. All right. So you all have been fantastic tonight. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for showing up on a Thursday, and for some of you, a pretty much Friday day. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop the survey on up. You should be able to click on it. And if you will go ahead and before you leave us tonight, fill out that survey. We would greatly, greatly appreciate your feedback, because without you, we don't have a reason for being here. So thank you all again for your attention tonight. And if anybody can't click on it, let us know and we will go ahead and just send it to you in the chat. Last call also, if you are a teacher and you were here tonight, please let us know you were here. Just drop us a quick line. Thank you all again.
Sparkman, have a good 3-day weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, Sparkman, enjoy your 3-day weekend. Well, those of us who are not Sparkman have to go to school tomorrow. Sad face. Heck yeah. All right, y'all be safe, make good choices. Probably see some of you at review sessions for AP Palooza. Don't forget that's coming up. All right. Mr. Gillespie, I can tell you have an awesome group of students.
Some of them are pretty funny.
That's cool. That is so cool, though. Gotta love a good sense of humor. Keeps economics from being so dismal.
I never knew why it was called that. But just this week I saw it on Twitter. Do you know the history behind that?
I don't at all.
Evidently,
I mean,
the short version is that evidently it was started to be called the dismal science because two of the leading economists at the time were against segregation. So,
so something that's good cause it to be dismal. But I mean, again, macroeconomics is coming out of the 30s. So interesting. Was it Hayek and Keynes?
I didn't, this is one of those things where I didn't read the entire article.
Okay, fair enough.
You know what I mean? I saw the headline
right.
or the tweet or the post and didn't do any more research on it.
Well, I might offer to that. I don't know. I don't think any of my students were on tonight. So I might offer that as a bonus question to them. Just be like, yo, go away, research things. That's a good bonus question. Cool. All right. Looks like we still have people filling out that survey. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. That lets us know how we can best help you. Did you have any teachers message you?
I want to say Betsy Russell, but it said Ruth Russell on the
I would
on the
just
Zoom
put-
thing. But for
I would
some
put
reason, I want to
Betsy.
say it's Betsy. Is that Betsy? Is it Betsy Russell? I don't know all these people very well.
Me neither. I would just put Betsy/Ruth. That would work.
Okay. All right.
All right. Y'all, thank you again for coming out tonight. So appreciate you. I think my dogs are hungry. They're grumbling. It's about their dinner time.
Do any of y'all that are left, do y'all have any questions? If you don't have any questions, like the next 30 seconds, we're gonna put you in the waiting room just because it
Mhm.
removes you from this, but allows you to join Zoom sessions later. So if you don't have any questions about 30 seconds, we'll send you to the waiting room. Just assume your computer's frozen or something.
Yeah, or they might be working very, very hard on that survey.
Yes,
Which-
that too.
Again, greatly appreciate. Greatly appreciate. That feels like about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and do that.
Thanks. I'm filling out that Google form at the end.
Perfect. I gotcha.
Did you say
And
there were a few that said they had not covered Forex yet?
we're getting down to the wire.
But at the beginning question, like I didn't see all of the responses. Did you say you had seen a few responses where some of them had not covered